Hi everybody, I'm here with Mark Gamble from Couchbase. Mark, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Gabriella. How are you?
I'm doing so well.
I'm so excited to be here at the Cloud Summit. It's been an honor speaking here, so really appreciate the opportunity.
It's an honor to have you. And tell us a little bit about your talk that you just came from.
Sure, yeah. I was talking about Cloud to Edge AI with a Cloud to Edge AI database, the role of the database, and it's really all about the notion of creating an application powered by AI that is unaffected by internet outages. So it's about trying to do your best at eliminating the internet from the equation. And seems simple in concept, but then you start thinking, okay, AI requires data. So that means we're going to need an AI model, we're going to need a database. And if they're both in the cloud, those start to present problems when you get in areas of poor connectivity, especially mobile applications where people are constantly moving around in and out of coverage. That becomes a huge problem, for all of these emerging innovations with AI. So I was talking about ways to mitigate that with our product, Couchbase Mobile.
So that term, Edge AI,
Yeah.
would you mind defining that for the audience, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'll back up just a little bit. Edge computing in of itself is this notion of bringing data processing to the near side of the network. So you eliminate those dependencies on the internet. So what I was specifically talking about is at Couchbase, we have Couchbase Mobile, which has an embedded database. And that database then becomes a part of the code base of applications that run on device. So that eliminates now that round trip of having to pass, request data from the cloud and wait for it to come all the way from the cloud. And if you're in areas of no connectivity, that presents a big problem. So now when we incorporate the notion of AI models, of course, AI models, the most ubiquitous ones are all running in the cloud these days, but the same problems are presented there. If your AI model is in the cloud, then you still have dependence on the internet. So my talk was really about combining this notion of database on device, AI model on device, or at the edge, depending on what the device is, so that they can both interact with each other without having to go across the internet.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and the applications will become faster, more reliable, more secure, and handle bandwidth much more efficiently when you do these kinds of techniques.
That's so interesting. And are there any downsides of making an application resort to Edge AI?
Sure. I mean, I don't want to necessarily refer to them as downsides, but there are trade-offs. Let's call them trade-offs. Because of course we know large language models, you kind of require the cloud for an LLM because they're large. It's in the name. But with the small language models, these SLMs that are starting to come out, they have to be smaller, in order to fit into the code base on a very small footprint, a resource-constrained device. And so what you might sacrifice from a large language model is some level of accuracy by shrinking it down. But with the emerging market of these embedded lightweight models, they're using things like quantization and optimization to make them just as efficient and accurate as possible. Arguably, sometimes arguably as good as some of their LLM counterparts in some cases. So there are trade-offs, but the point that I made actually about that in my talk is if you have a database architecture that can support both cloud model and an embedded, a small lightweight model, then you have this thing called optionality, where the big complex prompts or tasks or really complicated things are handled by the large language model in the cloud, where there's the scale and all of the horsepower to handle it. But for those offline use cases, it's worth it to sacrifice a little bit of accuracy to still have the immediacy of being able to provide feedback. And so you might isolate your less complex type of tasks or questions or prompts to being essentially answered with a local or small language model.
That makes total sense. And so you mentioned LLMs, and we already know the big LLMs going around right now. Do we have any up-and-coming SLMs that we might know about?
I think you're going to start to hear a bit about llama.cpp. We're seeing But Gemini has its counterpart, the embedded version called Gemma, for example. And and the list goes on. Essentially, there's a TensorFlow Lite, for example. Everybody probably knows TensorFlow are a mainstay in ML and AI, but now they've got a lightweight model that's meant to run on resource-constrained environments.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see what AI has built and where it's going from here too.
Yeah, I think that we at Couchbase have really kind of been trying to go where the puck, I'm using a hockey, and we're in Canada, we're trying to go skate where the puck is going versus where the puck was. And we just see agentic AI and this notion of edge AI taking off, because being able to run apps at the edge is a big problem today. And so everybody's trying to figure out how to solve it. And we think we've got a pretty novel approach.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for you specifically, what interests you about Edge AI, and what made you choose that as like a career, a passion, or what you want to focus on?
Well, I have a long lineage in database. I started my technical career at a company called Informix, which is a database technology. Then I went into analytics, then ultimately into AI and natural language processing. And then full circle, I'm back where I started at a database company with Couchbase. And I think what really has captured my imagination is this notion that the database can actually control or can harness a lot of the AI within these applications in of itself. That it doesn't have to be this complicated morass of different technologies that may or may not commingle and interact together very seamlessly. Instead, if you do it at the database level, that's like the core of the application. Data is the lifeblood of applications. Data is the lifeblood of AI. And I figured, wow, I get to talk about it from that perspective. Yeah. And so that really excites me. That's why I was really excited to talk at the conference today.
That's great to hear. And so you're talking about your career and how it has led you here. Where did it all start? What was the vision if you take it back, I don't know, 10, 20 years?
Interesting question. So I never set out actually to be a software engineer or marketer. I was studying to be in the radio. Oh. I wanted to be the next big DJ until I realized disc jockeys on the radio these days don't make a lot of money. And with streaming replacing, traditional radio, I decided, maybe it's time to look into something else. And that's when I started working at Informix and realized, the database, I have some affinity for the database. Slight disclaimer, I'm not a developer, but I play one on TV, and I talk to a lot of developers. And so I'm fascinated by the notion of solving problems, with innovations in development and with code. I just think developers are the most brilliant people on earth.
And I'm surprised you didn't turn to AI DJs working for one of those.
Yeah, it's getting scary anymore. A friend of mine played for me. I can't remember exactly what the artist was, but it was all AI. Ooh. And it was as if Led Zeppelin had been a 50s band. And I listened to it, it's phenomenal. They did the whole, the whole album, but as 50s rock and roll. And I thought, who is doing this? The singers are great, the musicians are great, and then my buddy told me it's all fake, it's all AI.
Oh my gosh, that must have been so shocking.
Exactly, like, it's getting too good now.
It's too much.
I know.
I've been seeing some videos being made that now you actually can't tell.
I know.
I was pretty confident at first when they first came out with those videos, like, you can tell,
you can kind of tell, right?
No.
Now, those days are really disappearing. Yeah, every day the new advances make things just really blur the lines between the AI and the human.
Well, back to Couchbase.
Yeah.
So how does Couchbase fit into all of this? How can Couchbase help us in
So
this age?
yeah, so Couchbase, this is another thing I talked about in my talk. So Couchbase has this fundamental capability of being able to facilitate multiple data access patterns. And by that I mean, what would normally take a single database to do, what our customers might They need vector search, they'll get a vector database. They need key value in memory, they'll get a KV database. We need a JSON database, they get a NoSQL database. We need an analytics database, and so on and so on. And we really saw that the data footprint at a lot of our customers was hugely inflated. Multiple technologies, each with their own redundant copies of largely the same data, sometimes for the same app even. And we just thought that's not the best way to do it. So we've built all of those capabilities into Couchbase. So one platform, and a lot of our customers will replace this big complex stack of different database technologies with Couchbase because of these capabilities.
See, I'm seeing a lot of this trend of trying to make things simpler, trying to make one tool for all of these different aspects.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
Do you think this is a trend? This is where we're moving towards?
It could be. I haven't seen this in a lot of other databases. There are others out there that call themselves multi-purpose, but that's generally 2 or 3 capabilities stacked together. And we've really gone to, great lengths to take almost everything we can think of. So I really, I think the trend in databases might catch on, but we're certainly seeing it in the greater ecosystem of applications themselves. So a lot of the other talks, in fact, here were about, simplifying development of AI, or simplifying deployment of AI, or simplifying security around AI-powered apps. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Simple is best.
Simplifying, making it more accessible, especially to those non-developers, people who want to be creative and be able to participate in this tech boom that we're experiencing.
100%.
But don't necessarily want to spend years in school learning how to code.
Exactly, and that's the kind of the modern era that we're in. I have some colleagues that are also not developers like me that still went off and developed, working awesome applications. And I said, how did you do that? We just went to ChatGPT or whatever, you name your LLM, and it came up with these things. It wrote my code for me. I'm like, wow, times are changing.
We are living in a new world.
Indeed.
And speaking of, I'm not a technical person myself, so some of the terms that you threw around I am unfamiliar with. Example, vector search?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in your talk you mentioned cloud to edge AI. And I was just wondering, what does that mean? And what does that mean to Couchbase, to you, to the world?
Sure. I'll start with vector search.
Yes.
So vector search, you probably have heard of maybe Pinecone is a vector database. There are others out there. So vectors are a way in which you can essentially identify items. Let's call it data. It could be an image or audio file or text, any of this kind of media. The human can understand its context just by looking at it, watching it, reading it. But the machines don't understand any of that stuff. So you have to give them something that gives context to these things that are otherwise meaningless. So this is where vectors come in. So vector is a numeric representation of different attributes of any given piece of media. So when we hear a song, Metallica, Master of Puppets, or something like that, we know what it's, hey, it's thrash metal, yeah, we love it. But to the machine, it's meaningless unless you give it some context. So in that way, you can vectorize that as data, all the different attributes, and that will teach the machine, or AI will then be able to understand it better. You'll be able to use search techniques to find different contextual attributes about it that can really inform the LLM or any other models. And so when you take that notion of vectors and the database being able to leverage vectors to find things that are similar, and you do this in the database that's at the edge as well as the database that's in the cloud, that's where we can connect the dots and say cloud to edge AI. And that comes back to the optionality that I was talking about a minute ago.
That makes sense.
So you can use the vectors are a way in which a database can best communicate with AI models, and being able to do it in the cloud and on device gives you more options to actually take advantage of the lightweight models at the edge, on-prem perhaps, and then the big heavy-duty ones up in the cloud.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thanks for explaining.
Sure.
Yeah, my next question is, AI is being used by just about everyone right now. But what about companies? Where do you see AI being most used in companies as of right now?
Sure. It's interesting. I actually read a Business Wire article that referenced a study. It wasn't their study. I can't remember whose study it was, but they found that enterprises that they surveyed, 60% of them are using agentic applications today. And at first I thought there's no way. I mean, because agentic applications are we're on the cutting edge now. We're starting to get, how could that be? Until I started to take stock of my own use of AI. And the funny thing is that as a source of pride, I never use AI to write my articles, my blogs, my web pages, my papers. It's all OI, organic intelligence, right? But then my colleagues asked, well, are you sure you're not using AI? And I started to take stock of that, and like, oh yeah, Google Docs has this amazing way of finishing my sentences because it suggests the rest of my sentence, and it's almost eerie how accurate it is to what I was just going to type. And so like, fine, hit tab, and I've saved myself a dozen keystrokes, and that's great. And then I also caught that in Zoom, we're a big Zoom company, we do Zooms all the time. They've got this new AI summarization. And it's amazing, not only that it can summarize the entirety of a conversation, but it can also attribute who said what to the individuals. I mean, this is stuff that used to be exotic and expensive software just a few years ago, and now it's so mainstay that we don't even realize we're using it anymore. So I really see enterprise usage being around, enabling employees and staff to find relevant contextual information faster, enabling them to also take advantage of this notion of essentially being able to run these queries on demand and understand what's happening within their ecosystem. And then the summarization, I think, is probably the biggest thing. Gen AI is fantastic for generating things from scratch, but I think it has a bigger avenue, bigger value in being able to take a huge corpus of information, boil it down to the Cliff Notes version, if you will, and be able to sort of make people more informed and thus more productive.
Yeah. So that's a lot of stuff to think about in terms of AI, in terms of what we should be expecting for our future. So my final question to you is, what would you tell somebody who is graduating right now, just going into business, maybe starting to think about their own business?
Sure.
What would you tell them? What piece of advice would you give them?
I would really start to look into the notion of edge AI, not just because I talked about it, but because I think the market agrees. We're starting to hear from more and more analysts that the power of AI has been proven. Everybody agrees, yes, the potential is unmatched. But when you start to lose that ability because of old-time things like the internet, like, oh, I built this great innovative app, it can wash your car and clean your clothes. Oh, it's offline, doesn't work. So start looking into the notion of offline edge AI. And of course, Couchbase has the tools to help, but there are other techniques and things out there that you can work with. Did want to mention that Couchbase has community versions and a free tier in our database as a service. So any of you students out there, absolutely take advantage of that, and the price can't be beat. You can use it for free and really learn a ton of our capabilities.
Thanks so much for this informative interview, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking to you again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of Cloud Summit. Please enjoy and talk to as many people as you can.
Thank you so much.
We're really happy to have you here.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, and thanks for letting me sit down and chat with you today. It's been really fun.
My pleasure.